somewhere in the middle of the night, I needed to get up to go to the bathroom. Being pregnant, it happened. Mm-hmm. And when I got up, everything just went black and I fell. And when I came to, I could see the clock over on my daughter's table, and it was just after 2. But I couldn't move. I couldn't get up off the floor. I couldn't pull myself, push myself, will myself, plead myself off the floor. And I stayed there frozen for about 5 hours.
Wow. So you're looking at the clock.
That's all I could see.
You know what you want to do. Your body just wasn't doing it.
It wasn't doing it. And I was on the baby because I fell forward. And I could just see the clock ticking and the minutes were just ticking by. And I didn't know how to change the situation. Normally when, as a mom and as a professional, as a person, you know that you have options. Mm-hmm. And literally frozen on the floor, I had no options. So I just had to release, right? I just had to say, I'm here. And the tears stopped and the begging stopped and I just waited. And sometime around 7, everything started to spin. I got hot. And it felt like I was burning from the inside, and I was able to move. So I got up, I cleaned myself up, I woke up my 2 kids. Alex was almost 4, Nicole was almost 2, and I went to the hospital. It didn't occur to me to call 911.
No. You just thought, okay, I'm over whatever that was.
I'm over it.
I've got to be a mom right now, get it in gear, and
totally.
Go. Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, I have to solve this now. I can solve it. I can go to the hospital. And we arrived at the hospital, and the nurse was very concerned. I must have looked like a hot mess. Mm. And she just said, where was the crash? And I'm like, yes, there was a crash. She's like, where's the car? And I said, no, it wasn't a car crash. It was like a brain crash. Like something happened to me. And she's like, what? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Let's check you out. So the baby turned out to be okay. Mm-hmm. And that day in March really started this huge journey for the next 8 months. Michael was born in July, and he was healthy and strong, thankfully. Yeah. And I continued to deteriorate. So I was getting more symptomatic. They didn't know if it was blood clots, if it was Meniere's disease, if I had multiple sclerosis, if I had some kind of brain tumor. Like, they literally checked me for everything. And I bounced around from doctor to doctor for the 8 months. And then in November, I went to the hospital. And I was getting my results back, and there was a panel of doctors on one side of the table, and my scans were all up on the light boxes. And I came in, and it was super intimidating, and I went alone because I'm not going to bother anyone to come, right? So I went by myself to just hear what it was, because I really thought it would be nothing. Mm-hmm. And when I got there, it was really surreal in that they kept pointing out all the things that they had found and what the data showed, and the degeneration over the couple of months that they had been tracking me and what that looked like in real life. And so at the end of it, they just said, we don't know what you have, but we know it's going to kill you. And I was like...
And you're sitting here alone.
I'm sitting here alone. And I just said, I have a baby at home. Like, Michael is 4 months old. I have 3 babies at home, actually. How long do I have? 5 years. So that was the day I found out I had 5 years to live. And they didn't know what it was, but I left there with a pack of prescriptions of all kinds of medications, some for Parkinson's, some for vertigo, some for epilepsy, and I just was to try them all. And of course, I got sicker and sicker. So for the first 3 years, I was dying. Right? For the first 3 years, I was just dying. I just decided that they knew what was going on with me, and I just had to make do with what I had. I had to take pictures of my babies. I needed to love them as best I could, but really, I was so sad.
To backtrack a little bit, they tell you have 5 years. Did it feel surreal to you in that moment? Could you process it, or were you thinking more so, there's got to be something else, you've got this wrong?
I think I was just in a place, because there were so many of them, and there was a cardiologist, and my neurologist, my main person, was there, and there was other people, I don't even know who they were. And I just felt like they have to know. And in the moment, in that appointment, it was November 17th. And that year, in 2006, my birthday was the following week, and it fell on Thanksgiving. So my birthday was Thanksgiving that year, U.S. Thanksgiving. And I, had bought some balloons, and I had bought some candles, of course, because we kind of take care of our own birthdays, when our kids are little. And I just remember saying to them, like, are you telling me that after next Thursday, like when we sit around the table and have turkey with our family and celebrate, I have 4 of those left? Like, how is that even real? Like, look at me. Aren't I fine enough?
And you're how old at this point?
35. Yeah, 35. And they just said, this is what the data shows. Like, these are what the tests show us. And we don't know anyone who has what you have. But when we put all the pieces together and mix it up, this is what we've arrived at. And I trusted them because I felt like you are at one of the premier hospitals in the US. You are all the tops of your field. You have to know more than me. And I believed them for 3 years. And then things got really dark in my world. I was not the mother I wanted to be. I was so consumed with how sad I was and how much I was going to miss of their lives that I wasn't even enjoying them then. And a small incident happened. It was so minor, and it just was this pivot point in my life where my daughter wanted a cheese string. And I said, sure, go ahead, grab one out of the fridge. And my mother-in-law had been brought down from Ajax because my husband knew I wasn't doing very well. And so she was there to help cook and clean and do all the things that I really did not have the energy or even the motivation to do. So she was hovering in the background, and my daughter wanted the cheese string. And I said, sure. And she couldn't open it. She was 5 at the time. So I just thought, you're not working hard enough to open this. Here, give it to me. And so I was trying to open the cheese string for her. And it was just one of those moments that slowed down in time. So I'm twisting it and I'm squeezing it. I'm trying to find the 2 ends to pull apart. And there are no ends. They had been fused together, but I didn't know that. I really saw it as, oh my gosh, I can't even feed my child anymore. Like, I'm so deficient and broken, I can't even do the most basic thing. And so I'm twisting it and I'm squeezing it and I'm getting more anxious and I'm getting more hot and I'm getting sweaty and I'm stressed out that my mother-in-law is watching me, my daughter's watching me, and I can't open this cheese string. And I put it down on the counter and I grab the cleaver and I chop it in half, and the cheese string flies. And I'm hot and I'm sweaty, and I look down at her and she just has these giant eyes and she's terrified. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I've scared her. I've scared her in my panic, and I just collapsed on the floor.
So that moment, was it for you where you said something has to change?
Almost. What happened next was the moment. So my mother-in-law had just very kindly and lovingly said, Leanne, like, I'm here for them. I will raise the kids. And it just hit me, like, in the core of my being, they're my kids. I'm here to raise them. They are my treasures. They are my pleasures. This is my job. And I went for a walk through the neighborhood. We live at the bottom of a big hill. And so I'm huffing and puffing as I'm walking, and I'm yelling at the universe, and I'm angry and I'm raging. But it was just how unfair the whole thing felt. And when I got home, I threw out all the pills and the syringes, all the pads, everything they had given me. And I just said, I'm starting from the beginning. I am sleeping when I'm tired. I am eating the very best foods I can. I'm doing what I need to do. I am not cleaning my house. If I am on the floor, because that's all the energy I have, I will invite my children to play with me on the floor. So we bought Play-Doh mats, and we did a lot of Legos and coloring and just things I could do when I really couldn't do anything else. And slowly, I just started to heal. And I continued to go back to the doctors. They still monitor me. I just 2 months ago finished an experimental protocol to see with these injections if they would help with some of the symptoms. I still have what I have. And this year is 14 years.
When they had given you
When they had
5
told
years.
me I had 5. So I feel super proud. And I had to set things in place to get here. It didn't happen just because I wanted it. I had to decide that I wanted it. I had to make hard choices with my time. I had to say, no, I can't volunteer at the auction and help out in the art room and drive your child through carpool. I can't do all those things. I can't cook from scratch. I can do what I can do, and that's all I can do. And I was really clear on my boundaries for many years. And I think it was super healthy for me, but it also was very healthy as a modeling tool for my kids to say, as a mom, you don't have to give it all away and end up on the floor exhausted every night because that's what you think a mom does.
Right.
No, a mom can say, no, I'm staying home and watching a movie and having popcorn. You know, they don't have to do all the things. And that was a super eye-opener for me as a parent, because before that, I sold it all, right?
Sure.
I gave it away to anyone who needed it. A stranger on the street, I'm like, here, let me save your world.
Because that's what you think you have to do, or that you think will make people happy.
Right.
But who's suffering in the end?
Right.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of the symptoms you experienced over these years, because as you said, you still experience some of these symptoms. So what do they look like?
Right. So I'm having one right now as I'm, when I think and I get really kind of stimulated in my thinking, I have these sensations of, I thought they were bugs. I call them bugs. And I would often go to my doctor early on and say, you have to look, they're there. And she's like, I don't see anything. I'm like, look harder. And she said, I don't see anything. What does it feel like? And I said, it feels like walking. And she said, oh, Leanne, like lice doesn't feel like walking. That's nerves. That is the way your nerves are conducting electricity through your head. So that's the symptom I still have daily. I get these pink neon flashes, which are always kind of fun, but not so much. Just different nerve pains. So twitches and, just sudden exhaustion, tingling, like numbing in various places. I have these little movies that kind of play in my mind parallel to life. So it's this weird, I will be going through my day doing something mundane and then a movie will start. And it's this complete start to finish little movie that my brain just fills in, and it's almost like I'm watching an episode of my life from another time that hasn't happened. So it's this weird cosmic jump thing. I don't know what that is, but it's just this strange collection of things that goes on. And just head pain.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of head pain. Those would be kind of my bucket symptoms.
It's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. And now you have 3 teenagers.
I do.
Right? So it's been 14 years, as you've said. How's your family been through all of this?
They have been amazing. And really, my kids don't know a time when I wasn't sick, right? My husband remembers me before. There's a before the crash and after the crash. But Alex was 5 when it happened. So he really doesn't remember who I was before that. But one of the things that I had done while I was deciding that I wanted to live was I needed to re-empower the number 5. I felt like the universe in a way was mocking me when I would be driving and it would be 55 miles an hour, or it would be 5:55 on my clock, or it would, 5 was just everywhere reminding me that my time was ticking. And I felt like I needed to cram my life into 2 more years because that's all I had. And so one day I just realized that we always think about traveling when we retire. When the kids are older and they're out of the house, we're really going to start living. And I thought, I don't have that kind of time. So we're going to live now. And I told my husband that we were going to visit 50 countries before I turned 50. And he was like, where did that come from? And I said, I need to re-empower that number. I can't feel paralyzed every time I see 5. I want it to be a number that I'm like alive for and just so joyous about. And so we started. We started with the 3 littles, dragging them around the world, deciding, where can we afford to go? We're 5 people. We need 2 hotel rooms because, the world of travel is designed for 4. So where can we afford to travel? And it brought us to places, honestly, we would have never gone.
Name some of the places that you've been to that have been the most memorable for you.
I think they're like children.
Yeah.
You can't pick your very favorite, but of the top countries I think we've been to, some of my personal favorites have been Turkey. and Japan, Bulgaria has been amazing. Poland was phenomenal. I think it's just, we've been to Paris, we've been to France, we've been to Italy, England, like kind of where tourists go. But then we went to Vanuatu, where very few people go. And, we ate with the locals, and we went, coconut hunting with them, and we fed the lizards, and, we measured the sharks to make sure that, they were still healthy and strong, because they shrink, I guess. I don't know exactly. Maybe it was a tourist thing, I'm not sure. But we were in with the locals because we just become a part of that space for the while that we're there. And because there aren't so many people there, they really embrace our mission. And just, I felt at one point I wouldn't live long enough to give my kids the world. We want to give them everything. And I really struggled that I wouldn't be here to do those things. But as long as I was able, I wanted to show them the world. So we go to these, we rent apartments when we travel. We don't stay in hotels. And we shop at markets. And all the kids plan a meal when we go somewhere, because they have to figure out, how do you take this jackfruit and do something with it? Okay, let's open up YouTube. Let's figure out, let's ask the locals. Let's see what we do when we're in these spaces.
These
and
are incredible lessons that you're teaching them.
Thank you.
And like you said, this is just the normal.
This is just the normal.
This is the normal for them, and they have their mom teaching them these things that they will always have with them.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
What have they said to you for feedback? Have they ever said, thank you, Mom, for this? Or what have
they totally have. So where it comes out the most is as teenagers. So they will be in conversation with someone, and there was a conversation about, we live in the US, there's a lot of talk about politics, and there's a lot of terms that are thrown around, communism and fascism and socialism, and not everyone understands what those are. And they were in a pretty heated debate at their school over the power of communism and, how stifling and controlling and punishing that system is for people. And my son was able to say, we've been to a couple communist countries, and some of the things you say are true, and I did see those. And there's this other side, there's this other piece of it. It is a full circle. All these systems, provide 360-degree views. And when I was in China, this is what I saw. And when I was in Cuba, this is what I saw. And so he was just able to bring these pieces. I know Russia is not necessarily as hardcore as some of these other countries, but my daughter was able to say, when we were in Russia, this is what the people were saying about their system. This is what they were thinking about, the Canadian and the North American systems, right? This was their point of view, and we have to understand what they see when they look in, because we're in these systems, but they really could bring real world value and not just, slam other countries. They're like, well, wait a minute here. I've been to this country. I know what Fiji is like, actually. So we can talk about what the landslide did to them, because I was there.
They are outside of the textbook. They're there. They're living it.
Yeah.
You've done some incredible things, and not just the traveling. How old are you right now?
I am 49.
You're 49
this year,
and you've hit
Sorry.
country. And you've hit country 49.
I've hit country.
Yes, country 49.
The Philippines in January we returned from is country 49.
And is that you want to do it a year every year? Is the travel? Is that or
No.
just wherever it fits?
It just wherever it fits. Yeah.
Okay.
So it just so happens that is how it worked out. But this year we were hoping to do a bunch of travel in the summer, and just with the way the the virus is going through the world, we're taking a step back and letting some things play out, because the places that we go are not necessarily as developed, and they don't have as many protocols in place to protect their own people, let alone travelers. So we would just wait a little bit to see how this plays out. But I'm fully on board with not only reaching 50 countries this year with my kids, but next year I've set a goal to visit Antarctica, which will be our seventh continent.
Wow.
So I'm just beyond, it's really about what do you have to look forward to? Because if you think about your pain today, and you think about your sadness, and you think about your fears, and you think about all the things that are stopping you, this is where you stay. But when you set something over there, that's where you look, right? And so you're like, I'm moving towards that. And even though I don't feel like I'm going there, every day I can take a baby step to that destination, and I'm full. Like, I'm excited, and then the happy hormones release, and it's a whole package of goodness.
It's pretty incredible. You've done so much more. You've written 2 books.
Yes.
Right? 2 books. You have helped how many women? And you're a speaker. Where do you find all this? And I know you've touched on it everywhere, but when you sit back and just say, I have to do this,
right,
where does that come from?
I feel that I was given a gift. I feel like my life is a gift. I feel that our job opportunities have been gifts. My speaking opportunities have been gifts. And I, grew up in not a very affluent family. We were struggling a lot. So waste to me is probably one of my corest of core beliefs, is that we don't waste. We don't waste opportunities. We don't waste food. We don't waste material things. We don't waste money. We don't waste our time. Like, everything is precious when we honor it and really cherish it. And so my life is a gift, and that I could have died 5 years into my disease. I could have died before that. They could have not seen something that was really, even more dangerous than what they had predicted. So I feel like it's my responsibility to help others, especially women, especially moms. That tends to be where I gravitate towards. We face dark times, as a stay-at-home mom, as a work-at-home mom, as a working mother out in the world. We all carry a lot of both visible and invisible responsibility, and it takes us to dark places. And just the shame and the sometimes resentment that we feel either towards ourselves or others in our world makes us small and sad and not really living. Mm-hmm. Because to fully live, you need courage. You need to show up, and you need to say, this is what I want for myself or my family. And you need to then be behind it with your energy and your zest for living. And I want to help women who aren't there yet. Mm-hmm. I think I found it. I think I found ways in my life. If I didn't feel professionally challenged, I wrote a book. And in February, I challenged myself to write the 3rd book in the series. And I finished it on Leap Day before I spoke in Michigan. It was important to me to honor my commitment to myself and finish the book I wanted to finish. And so I worked tirelessly to do that. And I set firm boundaries so that I wasn't on social media and I wasn't hanging out with everybody. I was like, no, this is important to me. And so that kind of dedication and focus is something a lot of people don't know how to harness in their own lives. And so I help them just decide what it is that they want. I can't tell them what's important, right? You set your own goals and you determine your own life path, but I will walk beside you and I will light the spark that fuels your journey so you get there. Because really, if you're not there, what are you living for? Your life is not to feel sad and overwhelmed, right? There are systems in place that we can put in your family. Your kids can do chores, your husband or your partner can step up. You can, design a more simpler life if it's all a lot, right? You don't have to do all the things. So just putting some systems in place to honor your heart and, kind of that heart song that says, this is important to me, but I'm afraid. Then I'm the one standing there saying, I'll go with you. Let me take you down this journey. And when you're ready to go on your own, I will nudge you out of the nest. I don't want to be with you forever. I just want to help you around this bend.
Tell me about the day or the time around the crash and your first chat with Leanne.
It was very confusing because she didn't have any answers. Nobody had answers. And I was really having a hard time trying to understand, what do you mean you can't, what's happening? And it just really snowballed into this big, I don't even know, of misunderstanding and misinformation and what about this and what about that and the pain. And she ended up having a biopsy at one time, and I got the call from her husband that she's not doing well. I literally said to my husband, so I'm leaving, got on a plane, shot out to Seattle. So it's been a very rough number of years just trying to be supportive but not knowing what's happening or what can I do to help.
If you were to describe Leanne to a stranger,
Wow.
how do you describe her? What do you say about her?
Wow is a good one. She is incredibly giving, incredibly inspiring. She listens and she finds that little piece of hope that person has, and she fans it, and she fans that little flame, and it gets bigger, and then the person recognizes it, and then they leave and they feel full.
How incredible is it that she's doing that for other people at the same time? Look what she's doing for herself.
I often say when I grow up I want to be just like you, even though she's my younger sister, but I'm in awe of her often. I'm in awe.